Seti, my brother, welcome back.
Thank
I'd
you, Adam.
ask how you're doing, but I know a little more of the backstory of how this week's, kind of affected you. And I don't know where this will go, but I really was looking forward to this today. It's been, and maybe for some watching too, it's been that kind of week for different reasons for each of us. Some maybe for work, some maybe for family, some maybe for whatever they may be dealing with.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off with a non-work question. Maybe we can stay away from that, Seti.
Yeah.
January to me felt like it was about a decade long. I don't know if it was like
Yeah.
that for you, but January felt really long. And then the last week has been like that. Has that happened to you too? Has it been the same,
Yeah.
different?
Yeah. And I think we talked about this a couple of weeks back. January just felt like an entire year in itself. Just
Yeah.
one thing after another. It was busy, but I think that contributed to it feeling like, man, this month will not end. So
No, it
yeah,
won't.
I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, are we ever going to get to Groundhog Day? Something about that. So, um, I reflecting a little bit from this past week for me, I have, and we've talked about this, or at least I have, about each moment is an opportunity and a gift, and oftentimes a lesson. And have I talked much about the concept of higher self with you? You and I are a little bit different,
Yeah.
spiritual, religious, but is there a concept for you when you talk about higher self? I want to make sure I get the words down first before I go forth in this line of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, there's layers of a higher self concept. There's the higher self that I'm trying to be in mortality. And then, of course, there's a higher self in my spirituality.
Yeah.
So when I think about higher self, it's for my mortality. It's what are my career goals? What are my education goals? And am I reaching those goals on a regular basis? Does it make me a better person in my community at large? But when I think about my higher self as a spiritual person, it's am I growing closer to God? Am I doing the things that will help
Right.
me be morally clean from what the world does?
Yep.
Trying to separate myself from a worldly person and become a more holier person.
Yeah. I think that's I think that's a good I think that's a good alignment between what I mentioned, and probably the details of it don't matter as much. So thank you for sharing that. Where I'm going with this is that you mentioned really well about getting, closer to God, closer to a true self, if you like.
Yeah.
Um, there are points, and I've had several significant ones this week. I don't often lose sleep because of that, but I had to sit on some things because I had to have some conversations that were difficult.
Mhm.
And thankfully, I took time to not be scrolling or doing something else to distract myself. I just kind of sat in like what that was. And you and I
Yeah.
are formerly angry men. Sometimes it's current, for
That's
me.
right.
Ask my wife. So I sat through, I think, things of ego and should I say something? Do I have to say something? Am I wrong if I do? All the back and forth. And finally, somewhere around maybe 3 a.m. my time, I was like, no, it needs to be said, and I need to drop the armor, drop the shield, drop the anger. Just be open, and if it doesn't go well, then it doesn't go well. But it's the thing that needs to be said, and I want to use those words instead of saying right or wrong. It really
Yeah.
just I feel it needs to be said
Yep.
with as little emotion as possible. If that makes sense.
Agreed. Yeah.
And because I said it, and often like moments where I don't realize that I'm feeling emotional about it. Like I I made the right choice, not right or wrong. I made the right choice for me to have to say it. And on the other side of that conversation that I had, it was unimaginably better than it could have possibly gone. And not only that, that other person had already received other information about it so that it was just for the better. And if I hadn't said that, if I'd have just pretended that it didn't need to be talked about, it would have been a
Right.
detriment, including me internally and for others. And I guess that's that's kind of where I am here and now, of being totally open and honest sounds really fun and really
Yeah.
grandiose and all that, until there's times when you have to be and you're like, man, boy, does so many parts of my human body just do not want to talk about this. I just want to just
Yeah.
ignore it. And you know what? If I ignore it, it's probably going to be fine. It's going to be fine, right? It's probably going to be fine. And but it chips away at those pieces of your higher self that you really know in your bones and in your soul that you need to get to. Do you know what I mean? It
Absolutely.
doesn't have to, even with you not having context about like the situation I'm describing, like in general, that feels more and more like the hard, sometimes painful, but really rewarding things that each of us in our own different ways are working through.
Yeah. 100%. And I can totally relate to that because there's been situations and conversations that I've had that are very similar. And
Yeah.
going into those conversations, we're both right. We're both right in that situation. But I think you frame it correctly, where you say we're not going into this to figure out what's right and what's wrong. We're going in to make sure that we both understand what's right to you and what's right to me, and how we
Yeah.
can move forward with from the situation without injuring e- each other more.
Right.
Or even if you're in a group setting, just not understanding that there's some humility that's involved. And I think you approached it. I'm sure it was very difficult to, because I think if you were to ask Jen or someone who knows me very well, I would say you're probably in that situation now. You know me well, and my habits, my characteristics, and in heated conversations, I have a tendency to just shut down. And it's
Yeah.
not so much where there's an element of I'm trying to protect myself, but it's more I want to sit here and listen. I don't want to respond until I am completely sure that we are both safe in this conversation, and I'm not
Right.
going to say something that is going to continue to injure you in that conversation. So I just do a little bit of soul searching in that moment, listen carefully, gather information, and my response is typically, so how can we move forward from this?
Yeah.
Because if we ignore this, you're going to continue to be injured.
Yeah. There's an element where you're like, okay, I'll at least speak for me. Um, I I certainly in my youth wanted to be, liked or likable, or
Yeah.
figured out the chameleon ways to be really thought of well. I I might be just scratching the surface, but I'll give myself some credit that I can accept that I can be an intense and have anger and talk in a way that might sound like lecturing or way too serious or whatever, and be okay with not being liked. And that wasn't always the case. Um, so that's a long journey. 4.5 decades in. Um, but then at the same token, I've also been able to do that and not have to feel liked, but then also still maintain composure, which I think is what you're mentioning. Like when you're getting more quiet, like you're trying not to show. Um,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily that you can't see it written on your
Emotion.
face, but right. Either you're not trying to show emotion, or you're trying to not make this situation worse. Like you said, even if it sounds a little corporatized, like how can we make this better, or what are our next steps to just kind of try and start working through it, even if
Yeah.
between here and that point is going to be real messy. Um, Life has those complications, and the moment to moment that you navigate those, even while you're maybe not having much fun at all, starts to shape how you can then handle those differently
Yeah.
in other times. This has just happened in the past, let's call it 72 hours, and I have a lot more gratitude for how I handled myself. What, just to your point, whether it was right or wrong, like, did I have to speak up? No, I guess I could have. I didn't have to. So it's not a right or wrong thing, but I would have been impacted negatively if I hadn't said something because it was
Yeah.
true to me. Even if the result of that, which I try to detach from, meaning, all right, whatever the result is, it just is what it is. But this is this is clearly so heavy that I've got to vocalize it. And think of the thing that
Yeah.
I didn't miss by doing that. By actually doing it, I got a lot of benefit out of it, even if it can't be looked at from others. And I'm trying to be, mindful to not be too detailed about it because I don't think it matters so much about the situation. I think it's that in general. Um, I'm hopeful for humanity that there's more and more of that out there where they can understand, just like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, it's a safe space. Um,
Yep.
it's tough to always know that. Um, I didn't know that if it would be a safe space, and thankfully it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I've gotten better, at least from how I feel moving away or walking away from those conversations. I feel better how my own response in those situations, because I think a lot of people are a little more outwardly um, emotive, or maybe I should say, people are more emotive on their faces, their body language, etc. I'm pretty even keel.
Right.
Even when I'm inside, it's just tearing me apart. I, for some reason, am not able to show a lot of emotion on my face.
Hmm.
I think that's a blessing in disguise sometimes, but I can sense, I think we all can, when the conversation is getting heated. I I tend to, before I respond, especially when I know that it may um, cause some more emotions to come up. I've gotten better at saying what I'm about to say is based on my limited knowledge. So please,
This
please
this
don't get more angry.
this probably makes you much better at deadpanning like humor, or if you're mad at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
especially, you're not you maybe I haven't gone totally inside the trust tree, so you don't rib me as much as maybe I would like. Um, we'll get there, I'm sure, at some point.
Yeah, for
It's easier
sure.
to do it in person too, so there's
Uh-huh.
that. But 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 from my experience in my life, most of the time when I walk into a room, if someone's known me for maybe a couple hours, they're like, "What's going on? What happened to you?" Or I'm, smiling like I am right now, and they're like, "Okay, he seems fine." They're, the in betweens aren't as much. You're able to contain that better. So yeah, I mean, I think it would be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
How is it internally for you? Like, when you're presented a situation and you got to think through it, are you better to think, on your feet during the conversation, or do you need to just kind of step back? And I don't think I've ever asked you if you feel like you're an introvert or an extrovert. I would imagine introvert, but maybe that wasn't your
Yeah.
days, younger. Maybe that's changed. But do you need to step back from a conversation before you can really come back with better thoughts or more information about how you really feel about it? What do you think?
Yeah, it would be the latter for me. And I've always been an introvert. There's situations where I can be an extrovert, but it has to be the right people that I'm having conversations with, where I feel safe and I can say whatever it is that's on my mind, and I know that they won't hold it against me.
Yeah.
And this siblings, cousins, and lifelong friends. I think you're getting to that situation where you can basically say whatever to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, understood.
Right.
But I do. I internally, I get very passionate about the thing, especially if it's something that I'm passionate about. Um, and if I'm having a conversation with someone that I love, just so I love more than I love myself. Those are the situations where I have to be even more cautious when I'm walking into a conversation, because if that person feels hurt, then automatically I feel hurt as well.
Right.
Um, I just take on those emotions. So what I do is, and Jen, when we have conversations and they become heated, she's gotten really good at saying, "Hmm, sounds like you need a break."
And you've
But
been able to move past saying, "Who are you telling me to need a break? I'll tell you when I need a break."
yeah, yeah, and she's the type of person where she has to solve it all right now.
Right.
We can't walk away from this until it is solved. Whereas I'm the person that says, okay, we have our information. I may have more questions, but let's take a break for maybe a day,
Right.
sometimes even a couple of hours. Let me go for a walk, clear my head, and then when I come back, let's resume. And I think we'll have a
Yeah.
better conversation. But right now, I'm so amped up that my mind is not thinking clearly, and I don't want to say something that's
Yeah.
gonna ruin the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm similar to your wife then in that way, and my wife would be smiling if she heard this. She'd be like, "See, Seti's got it. He needs a little time, just like I need time. I'll talk to you when I talk to you. Not going anywhere, but like
Yeah,
I need a minute because you're a little intense, Adam."
yeah,
Um, yeah, the over time, especially over the last couple of years, I can more fully appreciate needing time to really think through it because I'll jump to a solution, even if it's the right one. I still am jumping a little
yeah,
bit. Um, yeah, you mentioned about being an introvert. I might still be on the extrovert side to a certain extent, but certainly since I stopped drinking, which has now been over a year, I definitely need my time like unplugged,
yeah.
which has been really fascinating to me. Because I'd always thought, oh yeah, I get energy from other people, and I want to be around people. I don't need to be around, but I want to be around. I, I I wasn't really knowing myself enough. I need time
Mm,
to recharge too.
yeah.
Um,
Hence
yeah.
your hunting trips. Yeah,
Well, yeah, exactly. And interestingly, I never really drank during those times. It's just like, I don't have time. Well, maybe it was a little
yeah.
bit more than that. Maybe it was because I didn't really need to. Yeah, I'll leave that there. But but yeah, I mean,
It's
it's been
also
a
not safe.
well. It's also not safe, no. But a lot of people hear about going to hunting camp. You're like, do you even go out hunting? I'm like, yeah, because you just don't. It's just totally different.
Right.
But no, it wouldn't be safe. No. Um, your week in general for you. So been flying by. I guess it kind of sounds like like it has for me. Um, what what's been like one or two of the times that have been lessons that have been hard? Do you have them that often that I feel like I am? Like, is it a constant sort of struggle's the wrong word, but each challenge kind of meeting it. Has it happened? Does it happen that frequently with you? Is it every day?
Yeah, I would say on a daily basis, and a lot of that has to do, of course, with you and I being in the same profession and the same
Right.
industry. There's just I you might have a different take on this, but I just think sometimes the people that we're working with from other organizations, they may be under pressure for a number of reasons. Keep the lights on, if you will, or get this project to a successful conclusion. Whatever the case may be, they may be also dealing with personal issues. And when we jump on, there's just specific customers and clients that we work with where it's just like an hour before that meeting, I'm just feeling that anxiety that, okay, what are they going
Right.
to come with this time?
Right.
And it's a lot of that versus I have found so much comfort and peace uh, working with other people outside of work, where I have an opportunity to show up and say, hey, what is it that I can help you with today? And
Yeah.
that really, helps me reset my focus to things outside of myself and really uh, dig a little bit deeper into doing the things that come naturally to my spirit.
Yeah.
And work is work, and it's the necessary evil, I guess, to get to make ends meet. But I've learned from those interactions as well who I am as a person, and my fight or flight mentality is, I don't know that I have a fight left in me when it comes to my customers. It's more of I sense that you're in a situation where you feel either attacked or there's no win in sight for you,
Right.
and I don't. I want to help you understand that I'm here to help you, not make it worse for you.
Right.
And
Right.
that's led to better conversations actually with customers.
Yeah. There's a balance of empathy and still boundaries of like, you want to care, but not to the detriment of doing too much for them, saying yes to too much, saying,
Yeah,
adding fuel to the fire, whatever. Um, that's a detriment too. And yeah, in our industry, I'm sure it's many other industries or just in general, you've got a constant influx of, even if you know the people, there are different emotions flowing through you. And if you're even somewhat empathetic, you're going to feel those. And gosh, it's awful tempting to just jump on that train, whether it's going fast to fun or going
yeah.
fast to not feeling well. And um, that's tough. That's a tough thing to navigate. What do you'd mentioned about, you mentioned about things that are outside of work that you do kind of for yourself, or what you find more fulfilling, I guess I'd say, from soul level. What are those, or what are the recent ones?
A recent one is we work with a youth group, of course, we've talked about before, and that youth group, some of them come from environments that aren't where both parents are working a lot, sometimes single parent households where there's not a lot of support for some of the things that the children need. And I can just see when I see them at church services on Sundays, the mom or the dad just kind of both look like completely out of it,
Yeah.
and just need to find an end somewhere. Whereas, and then you see the kids where they're just kind of, yeah, my life sucks.
Right.
Because
Right.
and I think a little bit of that has to do with they're looking at people outside of their home. I remember doing this as a kid, looking outside of a home and said, man, my friend, he just has everything. He just has a great life, not knowing what's happening behind closed doors.
Right.
And we get to do this on a weekly basis. We meet with the youth, um, and we have various activities, and we have opportunities. I've gotten better at having opportunity or finding opportunities to have conversations with some of the younger group, 12, 13, 14 year olds who are just trying to figure themselves out,
Yeah.
and say, what are you struggling with in school? Is there someone I can pull in to help you out with your math or help you prepare for each day? So they're really just conversations I have with these young people to really be a mentor to them, be a safe space for them where they can just vent to me about parents. And then I have an opportunity to say, hey, when my boys were growing up, we had the same experience, and this is what happened.
Do
And
you do you find yourself? I didn't mean to cut you off. But do you find yourself getting into like in-depth conversations with them, or is it mostly kind of surface level, and there'll be a couple dig deeper levels, and then you kind of come back up? From I interact with my kids. That's my uh, level of youth that I would talk to on the regular. So
yeah,
I'm curious from your perspective. You're not related to them. You see them often, right? Maybe once a week.
yeah, yeah.
So do your conversations get at depth? Because I can tell you, with mine, by and large, it's fairly surface level. You see them all the time. How was school?
Yeah.
Eh, you know, how's this? How's that? You see them at meal times, stuff like that. There's a little bit more interaction with that, but it's kind of just small little pieces. And so
Yeah.
you try and, I think as a parent, you try and glean what you can. And if there's a opportunity to speak, you get a little deeper, and then you don't want to do it for too long, because if they realize that you're doing that, then that it throws the whole magic off. But
Yeah.
is it the same way when you are involved with a group of youth, or because they're there and hopefully they're there kind of willingly?
Hmm.
Is it a different situation?
Yeah. So initially, when I start having conversations, or when I started having conversations with them, they're, I think, just like typical kids, they're very standoffish. They're trying to figure out, who are you? Why are you
Right.
talking to me? Kind of thing. And I've just been able to build a rapport with each one of them, find things that are interesting to them, and then just kind of, I've been actually really surprised once they're able to let down their guard a little bit. I've been
Right.
very surprised at some of the things that they share with me, very openly, very honestly. Obviously, when it gets to situations where this is skirting the line of too much information, that you need to be talking either with a school counselor or
Right.
with our bishop, who is the head of the congregation, and say, hey, that's a good place for you to, because there's not a lot I can do for you in those situations unless I get into some really personal stuff with your parents, and I don't want to be that person.
Right.
So, um, other than that, I mean, once they let their guard down, I've been very surprised and impressed by the perspective of these young people, and seeing some of the things that they're going through. I'm like, man, I did not have to go through stuff like this when I was 12 or 13.
Yeah. Well,
So,
if you think about it, just kind of going further with that thought, if you think about it, think about us when we were kids. I don't necessarily know your upbringing different from mine. I know they were different, but most of the people I interacted with was either my own friends, which is a different, element, or interacting
mhm,
with family members. Now, I do think there's a similarity for me between your parents or your parents. So, they're charged with making sure you stay alive,
yeah,
first and
yeah,
foremost.
hmm,
Maybe not foremost, but firstly. And there's an element of, all right, well, if I share this thing, am I going to get punished, or am I going to be told just, quit crying and just deal with it, whatever else? There's an element that's different because they're in charge of of you. So there's a responsibility there. Grandparents might be a little closer to being able to like share down some wisdom, and they're not really in charge of you. They get to spoil you and hand you back, that kind of stuff. I
yeah,
know you probably really enjoy doing that. But in your level, it almost goes to an even better is the wrong word, an even kind of bonus thing. You create a safe space for them. You aren't in charge of their discipline. You
yeah,
could talk to their parents, but really you probably are not. And you're not a grandparent. You're just a safe space. So they can share more things maybe outwardly with you to a certain
yeah,
extent.
yeah,
And so in that way, I probably wouldn't be surprised as long as that safe space is there. Um,
yeah,
which I think would be great for kids once they can get their arms wrapped around. Okay, it's good. I'm gonna, I just think that's a very good outlet that you and
yeah,
others are providing to children, whether or not the
yeah.
kids realize it or not.
I agree, and I think that that's a huge part of the situation, or of that situation, because they feel like, well, he's not my parent, and I can't say some of these things to my parents. Maybe this is a testing ground for another adult to give me some advice, some direction on. And there's times when they'll come up to me and they'll say things like, and Jen has these situations as well. They'll come up to us and they'll say, if I tell you this, will you keep it secret?
Yeah,
Nope.
yeah, that's right.
Nope. So you need
Nope.
to decide
Not if I
if
don't
it's
know what's on
something.
the other side of this card.
Exactly. And I said, hey, you need to decide. You have a choice. You can bring in the people, like your parents and your bishop or a school counselor, whoever the case may be. You can bring those people in, but if you tell me something that is either breaking a law or is, very sensitive situation, where it may be someone else who is breaking the law, then you need to decide if you want to tell me or not. Because
Yeah.
if it is one of those two situations, I have to go through the proper channels.
Right. Right. Do you have
Yeah.
to find yourself
So
having to do that much for what children may share with you? You have to
we've
go
had
through
that
proper.
situation, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I've shared with you when I served as a bishop or a leader of a congregation, not too long ago. There were situations where they said, "Well, you have to keep this secret." Like, no, I don't. If it,
Right.
well, we have to keep our conversation secret. But if it is a situation where you're breaking the law or you're injuring someone else, or someone is injuring you, then I have to follow the law in the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that do you find with that knowledge that kids are less open to sharing, or do they not really think about it?
At times, I think, in the instances that I'm referring to, once I made it clear that, and I think, with kids that young, they kind of want to say it to
What's the
someone.
ages? Can I ask what the
uh,
ages are?
tw- Anywhere between 12 and 18, but my
Okay.
responsibility is 12 and 13-year-olds, 11-year-olds, actually, 11 to 13-year-olds. But I found with kids that age, almost 99% of the time, when I present it to them that way, it almost feels like they want to say it to someone, but they would like for you to pass the message on to someone else, even
Right.
though they framed it that way. So it's kind of a way of outing someone without actually outing them, if
It's
that makes sense.
it does, and at least for me, it's kind of come full circle to where this conversation started, talking about higher self and that
Yeah,
type of thing. It maybe I'm leading the witness. Maybe this is my own lens, which is a certain perspective. But even as a child, if you really know that you want to share some truth, even if you're not quite so sure about the output, but they, just like you said, they want to get it out. Your
yeah.
higher self
It's better
really wants
coming
to
from you than it does is from me.
right. They want to
Yeah,
express it. It's just it's difficult, especially at that age.
yeah,
Do you so for 11-year-olds, do you follow them through 13? And obviously they're going through a boatload of changes to that point anyway. But
yeah.
do you do you see a lot of progression, maturation, whatever you want to call it? Not biological. I'm talking about like mentally and heart focused
I
progression
do.
through it.
Yeah, because I have interactions with all of them. I mean, that's my specific age group is 11 to 13, but I
Yeah.
also have really great interactions with the ones that are 14 through 18. And you can tell, like, the the disparity is so huge between, I know, even if, when they start having conversations, there's very few of them that can have, in that age group, that can have really in-depth conversations because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
Whereas the the 16 to 18-year-olds, very experienced, they know what's going on in the world, they have access to other things. Many of them are driving, and they have friends that they get into stuff with. Those conversations, like I had a conversation with a young man last night, because we had a youth activity, and he was bringing up some things that he had, what he's really interested in certain things and is trying to decide on a career path. And I said, here's some things that you can do. And he said, well, I kind of don't want to go too far because, I want to be here to support my parents and my family, but I'm
Right.
also interested in this one girl. And I have a feeling that if I move away, then, maybe that relationship won't be as solid. And I said, yeah, those thoughts will change over time.
Just wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and especially at that age and that mind frame, like it just feels like the end of the world,
Yeah.
happening. And that's and kids, I imagine at that age too. It's you don't want to be like, oh, when I was your age, as a child, you don't really want to hear that. You want to just have a shoulder. Um,
Yeah. And I even said to him, there were probably about a dozen adults in the group, and I said, I'm going to give you an experiment, and it's very, very simple. Just go around to each of the adults that are in this group and ask them if they married the person that they were in love with when they were 16.
yeah,
And then come back and report it to me. He came back and he said, not a single one.
right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. First loves or first relationships, whatever the age is. I mean, there's a lot of great things that kind of start out from that, but it's not too often that it's the
Yeah.
last time that it happens. But as
Yeah.
a kid, it can feel, you know, at 16, there's so much of your life that occurs more so ratio wise, like in a day or a month. It just
So
seems like
much.
it's so heavier. No, very, very cool. I remember you saying before that your heart really seemed to want to give to youth and specifically this kind of age range. And
Yeah.
I think last I'd asked you about it, you don't foresee that changing. Is that true? And is there can you remind me again why that reason is, or is it just because it's just how you feel?
Um, I think there's a number of reasons why, but feeling that is the highest priority in my mind. Just wanting to be um, someone who is a resource to these young people and sharing with them my own experiences, the good and the bad, especially the bad, um, because it reminds me of what I was like when I was that age, but it
Right.
also teaches them that this old guy has been through a lot and he still seems like he's in a good place in life, and that
That's
just
right.
comes with experience.
Yeah.
And
You're pretty with it.
I try. And I mean I just love it. You often hear people say being around young people makes you feel young, and there's so much truth in that.
Yeah.
And I get I'm learning probably more from them than they are from me, and that really excites me as well. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't think about it that way, and it's just trying to bridge the gap between generations as well, with all of the old people getting angry at them because they're talking too much or doing this, doing this. I'm like, hey, that's just kids.
Yeah. Well, and the if you will, the heaviness of the world hasn't quite weighed them down yet. They're not as
Yeah,
they might be jaded about certain things, but not necessarily as much of an older crowd might do unless you do a lot of work to kind of slough off some of that. So I totally
right.
get it. I totally
Yeah,
get it.
they're pretty much at this point an empty canvas, and they're still trying to figure out what is this canvas going to look like in 50 years.
Well, it's admirable your um, I'll say patience because I don't know that I'd be able to be as patient as you are to probably kind of listen to it and not be like, just don't do that. Like, just don't, that might not be true. I mean, I try to be a little bit better about that with my kids. So maybe, but um, it's really admirable what you do.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for doing that. I'm sure you do get a lot of gratitude just internally and benefits from it that have so much more to give you than maybe even you to them. It's huge.
Um,
That's great, Seti. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we're almost at time. I know we both have to run, so send us home. Anything you want to say? Kind of wrap this up more about that topic or others that you'd kind of like to leave us off with.
Yeah, maybe a final thought about um, this year we're studying the Old Testament, and I'm not a scriptorian. I don't know a lot about the Old Testament. New Testament, pretty capable, but the Old Testament is just old, and I never really had a lot of interest in it. But it's just
Right.
it's funny that set of scripture, whether you call it the Old Testament or the Quran or whatever the case may be, there's so much knowledge and value that we can garner from it. And we
Yeah.
were studying about the fall of Adam and the period when they were in the Garden of Eden. And I shared this with someone else the other day, how it was important for Lucifer to isolate Adam and Eve from one another so that he could beguile them, to tempt them.
Yeah.
And that concept is still true today,
Mm.
that he will use isolation to remove either a support system from you or
Yeah.
someone who can testify to you of truth, so that he can infiltrate your thoughts and your emotions. And that isolation bolsters him from removing you from everything, even when you're scrolling, that brain rot of just scrolling nonstop. You think you're interacting with people
Yeah. You think.
because it's social media, but it's isolating you more and more from everybody else that loves and supports you.
That's
And I
right.
think that was, yeah, a very valuable lesson for me to really look at that from a story that is definitely as old as time, and look at how it relates to me as an individual, because I've seen it myself. When I isolate myself from the world and from people who love me, that's when I feel the worst. So
Well,
surround yourself with good people.
and adding to that, if you're also, not really integrated, or if you're detached from your higher self, then that's a 1-2 punch. Then if you're, just
Yeah.
sort of open to whatever distractions may be there. So yeah, that's really well said.
Yeah.
Seti,
If you
I
open your mouth outside the window, whatever goes in is not up to you.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Bugs, wind, anything.
That's
So
right.
yeah, I very much appreciate you, brother. Thank you for making the time. I'm sure we'll do another one again soon, and we'll talk soon too.
You got it.
Thank you for making the time, and thank you everyone for watching. I appreciate it.